One of the most popular genres here at Gamescom this year is, without a doubt, the Dota genre, the MOBA genre. And I caught up here with Todd from Hi-Rez Studios, and he's going to tell us a little bit about their addition to the genre, Smite, and what makes it unique.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of MOBA and Dota-inspired activity here, so that's cool to see. We definitely have a different take on it. So what we're showing here, really for the first time outside our studio, is a title we call Smite. It is a MOBA game. It's certainly Dota-inspired. The name Smite, as you might imagine, invokes gods and goddesses. So the playable characters are gods and goddesses. But what really makes our title unique is the way we change perspective. So we have a third-person camera, and it's locked right behind your character. So that one change affects really the entire tactics and combat of the game. Instead of clicking around the map, you're locked within your character and you move using WASD like an action game. Instead of lock-on targeting with the occasional skill shot, our powers and spells and abilities are aimed. So when you have a melee power, you're having to orient your character, and you're firing your ranged in front of yourself. And there's a lot of ground targeting where you're having to position and time it. So there's a lot of action game mechanics as far as the tactics, but all the high-level metagame that is familiar to other MOBA players as far as laning and minions and towers and a base and 5 versus 5, those things are going to feel familiar. But as we've seen here, when people come in and experience the combat, they walk away thinking, oh, this really does feel like a different type of game.
It does really sound different. What kind of sort of challenges that pose for the player when you're sort of moved down to the battlefield?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, probably the first thing that people notice is just their map awareness and peripheral vision, obviously, is much more narrow. So with the camera locked around my character, things like ganking become much more surprising. So rather than seeing someone with a couple seconds warning, I'm right on my character, and suddenly I might see someone, or maybe even just see one of their abilities, like Amir, the frost giant within the game, who can cast a ice wall and trap in players. You might not even see him, and then just see the ice wall suddenly appear in front of you. You're surprised, you're trapped, and then you have two characters coming out of the jungle at you. So things like team communication become even more important when someone is MIA and they're possibly about to attack. There's really just an added level of suspense to those encounters. So that's really the first thing that players notice. Second would be just the ability to land shots becomes very important. So in addition to being aware of your maps, aware of your teammates, aware of the enemies, you do have to land shots on your enemies, and that can be very satisfying as well, because there's a lot of those skill shot sort of mechanics.
Yeah, I can imagine communication and navigation, like being aware of where you are and where your teammates are at all times is going to be key in that sort of situation, because you can't really get that from yourself just by looking at the screen.
Yeah, that's right. And what we're showing here is actually a pre-beta build, so still very early in the process, but already functions like me being able to ping on the map and tell you, where we're going to meet or where I want your attention. Those sort of things are very important because of that team communication aspect that you speak of.
So you mentioned where you are at in development, but sort of this is first time you're rolling it out. What kind of timetable are you looking at?
Yeah, so we just announced it basically at PAX East around that time frame. We announced that we were working on the game, and we've announced gods over time. So before the end of the year, we'll start the closed beta process. In this build that we're showing at Gamescom, there are 9 playable gods, and upon release, we expect to have 30 gods. So we're drawing off of 5 different pantheons, families of gods. We have Greek, we have Greek and Roman, we have Norse, we have Egyptian, we have Chinese, and we have Indian or Hindu. So we expect to have, upon release, 6 of those. So at this point, the map is fairly well developed, the metagame's fairly well developed, the 9 playable classes here are playing great. So our process will be going into closed beta before the end of the year, continuing to add gods and goddesses until we reach that number.
And in terms of the business models, what would you compare it to in the same space?
Yeah, I mean, players that are familiar with games like League of Legends, it's very comparable. And as you know, all of our games really, we look at free-to-play, polished, balanced gameplay, not pay-to-win. So those are the principles. I think League of Legends did a good job with that. And ours is fairly comparable in that basically you can quickly purchase for unlock gods or goddesses to play. You can buy boosts that'll accelerate your progression as a persistent character outside your god or goddess. And finally, cosmetics items such as skins or voice packs or those sort of things that don't affect the gameplay.